This show is sponsored by Infinite Zeal Syndicate. You can follow him on Twitter @_Infinite Zeal. He is a great liberty-minded fella that just wants to share the message of liberty and also has fantastic merch like this hat I'm wearing right now. You see me wear it on every show. He's a great gentleman, and I highly suggest you give him a follow because he's one of the good ones, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome to the BudsnReality Show. I'm Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say. And I'm here this week with my Fed and Econ guru, Mr. Robert Aro, a.k.a. EconCircus. How you doing, brother?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me, bud. Yeah, it's been a while, man. Yeah, I see you on Twitter. I'm watching your podcast. Yeah, you're getting up there, so I'm excited to be here for sure.
We've been talking about this, doing this for a minute, and the stars haven't quite aligned. So I'm finally, I'm glad we finally got to do this. Let's to get started, let's talk about what you're into for a minute because not everybody knows who you are. So let's go from there.
Yeah, so I'm writing articles for the Mises Institute. It's been a few years now for sure. I'm on the blog, on the Mises blog. So every week I'll get to write about the Federal Reserve, follow them and their antics or shenanigans or their economic wisdom, whatever you want to call it. So that's been fun for sure. And just wrapping up with the Masters in Economics with the Mises Institute. So yeah, I always got some projects on the go, and I'll actually be in Prague in October for Tipolis. I'm the controller for Tipolis, so doing the accounting for them, and basically we're trying to build the world's first international city, or like a free private city. So a lot of good things coming down the pipeline. So stay tuned for that. And but yeah, I'll be in the Liberty in My Lifetime conference in October. So that should be a good time. And that's in Prague. So.
That's awesome, man. How does one get into writing for the Mises Institute anyways?
Mises, it's actually been maybe 3 years, I think, over 3 years. This is, it seems like a lifetime ago, but yeah, I started just with my website, EconCircus I had, and I just, once I discovered Austrian, I spent probably like 5 years before, maybe from 2015, just, I discovered Mises Institute in 2015, 2016, and I just read everything, like literally, that's all I did. I must have spent 5 years just reading everything I could get my hands on. And then eventually I launched the EconCircus site, and I just took to Twitter and started writing articles. And then I caught the attention of Jeff Deist, the former president, who, I still, awesome guy, and I love that guy, and he really gave me a start. So yeah, I just kind of connected with Jeff, and just things grew from there. And then I, became the Mises blogger, and doing that, and then the master's program, and it's just been it's been a wild time. And I was in Alabama last year for just one of the conferences, and I presented a paper. So I'm just trying to move up that economic ladder, and it's what the world needs, right? This Keynesian, this mainstream economics, the lies, the dogma, the Fed, the socialism. It took us here, right? And that's not good, right? And in this new century, the only thing that could save us would be a discovery or a return to the free market. And if we don't have that, then things will only get worse. So I think everything we're doing, like with economics, and then even with my work with trying to build private cities, I think that is the answer that the world needs. So it's got to keep getting out there, right?
Yeah, man, I definitely appreciate your writings for the Mises Institute. You're my Fed guy. Anything Fed and anything econ, I kind of just I read your stuff. I follow a lot of people. You're probably my favorite. But that
there's a lot out there. The competition of econ and Austrian economists. It's a small pool, but everyone there is like a powerhouse, right? And then you got the heavy hitting, the PhD guys and the Mises guys, and I learn a lot from them. So I appreciate that. I try to have my own flavor, own style, and just kind of make it personable to the average Joe for sure.
Well, your approach is very, very fun per se when you write your articles and stuff, and you make them very clever, and I always appreciate that. But you know what most people don't understand is that the Federal Reserve is responsible for everything that is evil, and I mean everything. And some people say, well, what about the military industrial complex or the large corporations or oil or whatever? But the thing is, who gets them their money? Yeah. And so that's why I personally say the Fed is responsible for everything that's evil, because those entities don't work without the backing of the Fed.
Yeah, follow the money, right?
That's right. Yeah. But you recently wrote an article for Mises this week, pretty much pointing out how the Fed has been mocking us. Yes. The working class and the poor folks. Let's take a walk through that, because that was they really are. They're pretty much spitting in our face at this point.
Yeah, that one got me. It's like they call it the Fed listens. I mean, they're not listening, number one. Like that's just a lie. They're not listening. Or if you say they're listening, but they're not caring, it's hard to know intent. But what the Fed does, they have these, they'll do these things like a town hall, right? So they'll say, we're coming to Atlanta and we're gonna hear from the people. And then they have, essentially maybe two people who they select, people in their pockets, obviously. No one gonna say anything controversial or challenge them. They select maybe two people from a foundation or organization who's on their side, probably. The public can't, talk or, be part of the conversation. You can only listen through a video link, right? So it's not really a public discussion. It just, the Fed is talking to, probably some friends, and the public can hear. So they call that Fed listens, right? And it's always the thing with the Fed, they're always about, after over 100 years of doing this, they always seem to be in discovery mode or learning, right? They want to hear about how does inflation affect the middle class? How do interest rates make car loans more unaffordable, right? And these are all millionaires. Jerome Powell's the richest Fed I think we've ever had, maybe $20 million net worth. He's a former lawyer, kind of hedge fund kind of guy. So when you have these people trying to, I'm going to ask what middle America or, Main Street or thinks about inflation and these rising interest rates and debt, it is kind of embarrassing, right? Because it's two different worlds, right? You can't have the people in the ivory tower, the millionaires, and nothing's wrong with being a millionaire, but when you're a millionaire who then is directing monetary policy, when you're directing the optimal level of the money supply, the ideal interest rates, all these crazy topics with no AI, no computer, not all the brain power in the world could, decide what's the optimal interest rate or the money supply. Those are just free market, phenomena that happen, and that's the best way to determine those. But you have these guys doing the impossible with these impossible calculations and all of that. So yeah, it's kind of absurd that they have these listening events and they go into small towns and they say, we understand, what you're going through. And even every time they do the minutes, they'll always say that, we understand the hardship that, the poor and the disenfranchised are going through, so to speak. But I mean, they don't, right? They're not there. They're not poor. They're not disenfranchised. They're privileged. They're everything that most people don't have, right? So yeah, it is mocking. It's absurd. It's crazy. It's not. It's funny, but it's not really funny because people are suffering, right? People are losing their houses, their jobs. People losing their minds, right? From debt levels, propaganda, being lied to. I mean, it's a lot, right? Medication of so much, So yeah, it's really crazy world we live in for sure.
Well, it's funny that they even get together and try to do something like that when they're the ones in charge and responsible of the interest rates and inflation in the first place. Like they know what they're doing, and then they turn around and treat us like we're stupid and say, "Oh, well, we understand that this is hurting you. Then why the hell are you doing it?"
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, we know it's painful, but we got to do what we got to do, right?
Well, yeah, because they're never. The ultimate goal is to to not only swallow up the middle class and the poor and take everything away from us, but they're also trying to swallow up all the banks.
Yeah, I
You know,
can
with
see that. Yeah.
you know, with all the bank closures and stuff like that, I pay attention to a lot of this stuff. And in the Federal Reserve's ultimate goal is to swallow up all the independent banks. That way they can get the CBDC going, and that's going to be the currency, because they know what they're doing is not going to work for too much longer. It's about to blow up in their face at any moment.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, I'm with you. It's hard the ultimate goal. Everything you said, I believe, but there could even be a higher ultimate goal, right? Like,
Right.
the CBDC might even be a lower level goal. There could be some ulterior things that we're still not. But yeah, I'm with you. All these crises, it continues to make the Fed all the more powerful. So when we get bank failures, well, yeah, CBDC will come. Oh, the Fed coin will come and make our lives easier. Pay no attention to the back doors, maybe the spyware, the expiration dates on your currency. Pay no attention that we can just inflate the currency by decimals. We'll just add it to your bank account directly, right? But their ultimate goal, that's for another day. I mean, who really knows how bad or how nefarious or what the ultimate end goal is? But whatever it is, it's not good. I'll tell you that, right?
Not when they're at the helm, and then you come to find out that I'm in the middle of reading Creature right now. And I shouldn't say in the middle. I barely dabbled into it. I've been really busy. But
the Creature from Jekyll Island?
Yes, the Creature from Jekyll Island. I'm reading that. You read that yet?
Yeah, I read that years ago.
Oh yeah. So one thing,
sorry. So I was there. That was my trip. Remember I was on my road trip across America for 3 weeks. We went down to Jekyll Island. We were right there. I had breakfast or brunch in the hotel.
No way.
It's the place, man. Honestly, it's nice. It's nice.
That's wild, man.
Georgia, and they had the Spanish moss on the trees, and it's like 100+ degrees, and man, you could feel the opulence. You could feel, how the Rothschild agents and J.P. Morgan, everyone must have just had the time of their life planning this thing out, man. It was.
Oh yeah, for sure. But the one thing I picked up in that book so far is that the Federal Reserve is actually the United States' fourth central bank.
Yes, yeah, they're not the first. Yeah. I thought the fourth. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're the fourth central bank, and then people will ask, well, what the hell happened to the other three? Well, the answer is very simple. The same thing that's happening right now.
Yes, but see, that's the thing, and that's where I first learned about that this wasn't the first Fed, and then you get to see Andrew Jackson. I think he destroyed like 2 of them. Like he hated that, right? Right. And when you mentioned Andrew Jackson, everyone will just say, "Oh, the Trail of Tears." They just kind of cite him for some atrocity. Okay, that's bad, but it's like they can easily write off everything he's ever done. I.e., he paid off the national debt, and then he ended 2 central banks, if I remember my American history correctly. And every president commits atrocities anyway. So I mean, he's definitely probably like, there's people who know him and love him and understand him, but then a lot of people give him so much hate. But I mean, end of the day, like, ending 1 central bank is good. He did 2, I believe, right?
That's amazing work. And Rothbard talked about Jackson a lot, and For a New Liberty. He's talking about Jacksonians and stuff like that. He was really, I feel like he was kind of speaking highly of Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, and then alternatively, then you have Hamilton, who makes, when you read the more, he's like, he doesn't sound like too good of a guy, right? Hamilton supported central banks. No wonder he got a Broadway show, right? Jackson will never have a show on Broadway, I'll tell you that.
No.
Yeah, that's Jackson the musical, right? You imagine?
It's so crazy. But that's kind of funny that we're talking about this right now, because I actually, you kind of brought up the beginning here. Let me pull this up on my phone real quick, because I took a picture of it. You talk about, the guys that got on the train to go down to Jekyll Island.
Okay.
And the whole thing about how they weren't originally on the train, and the train originally took off, but then stopped and had to pick up an extra car. 7 gentlemen on there.
Yeah.
And these gentlemen,
you have the list, the manifest?
I do have it right here. And so this is what I want to do. The 7 people that got on that train to go to Jekyll Island, and this should be sketchy enough right off the rip to tell you how sketchy the Federal Reserve is.
Well, sorry. And it's like from New York. Like they went all the way down country, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so it's Nelson W. Aldrich, Republican whip in the Senate, chairman of the National Monetary Commission, business associate of J.P. Morgan, father-in-law to John D. Rockefeller Jr.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, that's
one guy. That's one guy.
That's just one guy. The second guy, come back. The second guy is Abraham Piat Andrew. I hope I didn't sabotage that middle name. Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Treasury. Okay. Third gentleman, Frank A. Vanderclip, president of the National City Bank of New York, the most powerful of the banks at the time, representing William Rockefeller and the International Investment Banking House of Kuhn, Loeb and Company.
Yeah. What a surprise. Yeah.
You know, number 4, Henry P. Davison, senior partner of J.P. Morgan Company.
Okay, there we go.
5, Charles D. Norton, president of J.P. Morgan's First National Bank of New York. Wow, a lot of J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller going on here, right?
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Benjamin Strong, head of J.P. Morgan's Bankers Trust Company. Wow, yeah. Nothing to see here. And then finally, number 7, Paul M. Warburg, a partner in Kuhn, Loeb and Company, a representative of the Rothschild banking dynasty in England and France, a brother to Max Warburg, who was head of the Warburg Banking Consortium in Germany and the Netherlands.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Those are some heavy hitters, man. Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong from that? Ladies and gentlemen,
true.
I mean, right there, off the rip, you know.
You imagine like how easy these guys could draft essentially any legislation or bill or under the sun, right? I mean,
right.
Like imagine I can't remember if you have to, like, you write a bill and you take the Senate, you have all that stuff, but how easy is it for you to get a bill or legislation passed, right? Like John Q. Public, right? Like you can't.
Right. It's crazy. And so, you know, the banking cabals are the ones who have all the power. These people, these bankers have a lot of power. They have a lot of money. You know, you think about our national debt right now is about to hit 33 trillion.
7 trillion, yeah.
You know, we're there. It's a lot, and that's really hard to wrap. Like any normal person can't wrap their head around that kind of money. It's a lot of money. I don't even think I could count to that, honestly.
Well, that's I always talk about the national debt, and I go to that U.S. debt clock, and you see that ticker going. I always tell people when you talk about it, you say, okay, so 37 trillion. And then what's you just say M2, what's the M2 money supply, right? Last time I checked, was it 20 trillion? Maybe 22 is around there. So essentially saying the money supply is 20 trillion. So even if we got all the money back and paid off this debt, there'll still be $17 trillion left that we owe them, right?
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So there's more debt outstanding than the total money supply. So you guys wondering that seems kind of weird, right? I mean, obviously it's all the interest payments, right? Because I go to hypothetically think about the first $100 bill that was issued, right?
Right.
You owe it back, but now you owe $103 plus interest. So now you owe $103, but you only have $100 outstanding. So you're behind the 8 ball from day one, right? What we're seeing is the accumulation of trillions of dollars of interest payments for money literally created out of thin air, right?
Well, yeah, it's all counterfeit. You know, Ron Paul talks about it, and then the Fed, you know what I mean? They just print this money out of thin air, which totally debases the value of it. And that's why we have the inflation that we have. It's not that things have gotten more expensive. It's the fact that, you know, the dollar has lost its value.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, that being said, you know, we have this debt that's, you know, 37 trillion, you're saying. But these people, these bankers, these cabals, think about the kind of money they have. We're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars. They like,
yeah, I mean, I just don't even know what to believe anymore, right? Because like are we talking, so you mean assets or money in the bank? I don't know. I just don't know. Like,
well, at this point, they got to be counting assets as cash because they don't have the cash to count.
yeah, like cash doesn't, yeah.
You know, it's gone. But the fact of the matter is these people have all this power that run.
Well, yeah, these people have power. Yes, yeah. I mean, the true like money supply and all that, it's hard to count because there's so many, like they'll say derivatives, the total derivatives, and maybe only 10 people in the world understand it. But when you start counting all that, it's like 2 quadrillion. You get all these crazier numbers, right? So I don't know. It's crazy. I just don't know. You know, and who knows you know, who even knows, you know, how many you know, the inter relation with all these banks and the assets and who owns what and the swaps, and it just gets crazier and crazier. It's all mingled together. And this bank owns that bank, and they do mergers, and no one really knows how to account for anything. I think anymore. Well, forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can only go by what, you know, we hear or see, and there's no telling that, you know, what we're being fed is true or untrue. We just got to make our best assumptions at that and go to the best source possible for said things, you know, and it's definitely not for the mainstream media.
No, I mean, yeah, we live in a world where, yeah, I mean, everyone has an opinion, everyone has an idea. You know, the fact checkers even seem fraudulent. It's like, who do you trust when the fact checker is fraudulent, right? Or when the news is fake, right? Like, where do you go, right? Like, and then everything, the mainstream media, you know, even medicine, science, you know, academia. It's yeah, we just don't know, right? I mean, even I always joke. I talk about I tweet about just for fun sometimes, like the flat earthers and all of that, right? So I always just kind of point out people like, well, I mean, I'm not a flat earther, but I haven't gone into space, right? There's even a little bit of a reservation that because then I would be trusting the science for that, right? So I just don't know anymore, right? So,
Right.
well, even I saw that India moon landing. Did you see that? The
I did not
India's
catch that.
there's like a graphic. I hope it's a graphic. There's a graphic that of this moon landing, and it looks pretty fake. But I hope that's like a video graphic, not the actual moon landing, right? You know, and then China's going to Mars, but it's like I don't know. I'm not a flat earther. I'm just saying I haven't gone to space, right? So
I
yeah.
feel that. And speaking of China, man, that's something I want to pick your brain about. I saw a video with Peter St. Ange where he's
Okay.
talking about how right now in China, the youth unemployment rate is over 20%. And well, I wrote this down. Let me make sure I got this right.
Yeah.
And their home builder debt of $5 trillion is at risk. And that is responsible for over 25% of their GDP.
Yeah.
Now China's second in economy after us.
Yeah.
And that should be very alarming to everybody because if that's happening it's definitely happening here, which we will get into in a second. But what's your take on what's happening in China right now?
I mean, it goes back to the thing, who knows what to believe. So if we assume, and I'm sure he even knows, you know, if assuming the data is correct, assuming the unemployment rate is 20%, if the data is coming out of China, maybe you say, well, maybe it's closer to 40%, right? But for sake of argument, say it is 20%. I mean, it sounds high, you know, I guess that's, you know, that's probably like, I don't know, 100 million people, 100 million young men not working. Who knows? It seems, I don't know, I guess it's high. But yeah, they always had, well, it's been a while now. They had their real estate and bankruptcy and bailouts. And I mean, at the end of the day, the thing is, there will be a crisis, right? And when the crisis happens, we're all going to say, oh, it was because, you know, that Chinese company went bankrupt, for example, right?
Right.
But I guess the thing is, not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter in the sense that there'll always be something or some entity who fails. So you have the boom and bust cycle. This is the whole Austrians. We've been talking about it for 100 years, and you know the Fed's control, the month interest rates, the money supply. It all distorts everything, and things get screwed up basically in a nutshell. So what we're seeing, things like this, or this $5 trillion potential default, it's interesting, and it's a big number, and it's going to blow minds, but it's not, you know, it's not anything earth shattering, because there'll always be an entity who goes bankrupt. Now, you can't predict who or what it will be. Will it come from China? Will it be a bank in New York, a bank in Chicago? Will it be something else? But there will always be an event that comes, right? So basically, if we look at the last few crises, back in 2007, for example, they'll say, "Oh, those bankers, they were giving bad loans to people who couldn't afford them, and they collapsed the whole economy." So yes, that's true. There were a lot of defaults, and people lost their homes, and all these bad things happened. But it wasn't because the average commercial banker just became a bad guy and just started doing bad things. It was the result of the Fed, who was engaging in the boom and bust cycle, who's expanding the money supply, contracting the money supply, lowering interest rates, raising interest rates. All that caused that. Similarly, when we look at the last crisis, you could say, "Oh, COVID just came and everything got screwed up, and lockdowns came and everything got screwed up." So yes, that did happen. But when you look at the prior year, so before COVID, the Fed was actually on a tightening cycle, as it is now. So the money supply was being reduced, and then eventually the stock market collapsed. And that's all, again, because of the Fed. But then when the bad things happen, those bad things take blame for it. So basically, that's where we are now. It's been about a year and a bit of the Fed tightening. When you look at, and I post those about the Fed's balance sheet, it's decreasing by, probably in the last year, it's only been like $300 billion, right? And interest rates have been spiking. And so that is just a tightening. And then eventually things will just get worse, worse, and worse. And then someone or something will go bankrupt. A company goes bust. The bail happens, and everything, the stock market crashes, and all that's going to take the blame for it. So what you're talking about in the article, yeah, that's just one of the externalities, right? People go bankrupt, and we're gonna get more and more of that until everyone goes bankrupt. So yeah.
But I could totally see the United States government blaming whatever happens in China on our collapse when shit hits the fan here. Like
100%.
They're responsible
100%.
Because China's response, I think 25% of their GDP is actually manufacturing jobs over there, and that's way more than what we have here. Their manufacturing is way more than what we have here, because we send all our jobs there because of money, obviously. But when these things, when these jobs go under and shit hits the fan, everywhere, they're going to be like, well, it's China's fault, just kind of like how they tried to blame Russia for the gas prices and all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Putin price hike, all that. Yeah. So, yeah, 100%. So when it hits the fan, whatever it is, I still don't know, and who knows, maybe it's something completely out of left field. But yeah, it's going to be everyone except the Federal Reserve, and then as far as the American politicians go, it'll be everyone except them, or it'll just be the other party. Or if you're a Republican, it's the Democrats. If you're a Democrat, it was the Republicans, and no one will take blame. But especially the Fed, they'll never take the blame.
Well, because they're left unchecked. They do whatever they do unchecked. Everything's in private. It's in secrets, behind closed doors. Nobody knows nothing about what they do. They just do what they do, and we get to reap the consequences. It's a very bad setup.
I mean, yeah, that's all according to plan. But yeah, that's true.
And at the moment, the Chinese government is actually shutting down media talking about what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I could see that.
They're like, okay, we're not talking about this no more. You know what I mean? They shut it off.
Yeah. I mean, China, I feel it's always been, well, it's, to me, it's still communism. End of the day, even if they're rich, it's still communism. That's what they have, and that always fails, and that always requires, censorship, and it, requires people to be, slaves essentially, and to live destitute. Well, a lot of people in China are living rich and living the high life, but then like if you want to be poor in China, that's on a whole level that we don't even understand, right? To be a
Right.
poor person in mainland China, like you're almost living hand to mouth, right? It's like
Well, yeah, there's the people in the cities who have the money,
yeah,
and then there's the villagers,
yeah,
that live off the land pretty much.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
poor. They don't have anything.
yeah. And as far as the data, I mean, again, GDP is always fake anyway you slice it.
Absolutely.
It's always fake. But there's an extra layer. I mean, it's hard to say. At the same time, we can bash China and say, they had to do all this bad stuff. But then how much different is it than the Canadian or US government who falsifies data and fakes everything too, right?
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Now, I'd rather be living on this side, don't get me wrong, right? I'd rather be,
Right.
well, we're not as into communism as they are, but I mean,
We're headed
we're
that
getting
way.
there. We're getting there, I think. Okay?
Yeah, we're headed that way, and at a rapid pace. It's kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
easy to
Or
watch it.
like I see, and again, it could be anecdotal, but I don't know what's on my Twitter feed, but I'm getting all these looting videos all the time in America, right?
Okay.
Just looting stores and this, and you just feel like sometimes you just watch this thing, you just like, is looting on the rise or what? But I mean, as socialism becomes more advanced, you are going to get less social cooperation. I mean, that's what socialism is. It's the end of social cooperation. Just because it
Absolutely.
has the word social in it doesn't mean there's anything social about it. But ultimately, what you get in with the central bank system, with government control, is that eventually prices go to control. Hyperinflation ensues. Everyone's poor. Everyone's bankrupt, destitute. The disparity, income gaps are out of whack. The middle class is eroded, and you will get just a more desperate population. And at the end of the day, desperate people will do desperate things, right?
That's right. And we're seeing it more and more, and when if and when, and I'm gonna say when the dollar finally does go under, shit's gonna turn into the wild, wild west out there for real, because desperate people do desperate shit, like you said. And that's when I say, ladies and gentlemen, buy your guns and ammo and protect yourselves, because it's gonna,
Yeah, yeah.
especially if you're close to a major city. Rural areas, maybe not so much, but people in the major cities better be on point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you get to like that absolute, end game scenario, yeah, a big city of like, 3, 4, 5 million people who have no experience, you get your groceries like on demand, your food is on demand. I mean, that would be wild, right? I mean, I would take my chances in Africa where blackouts and power outage, that happens, right? We can have in Africa in some places you have a power for hours on end and the world doesn't end. But imagine like, big city America, your average teenager who can't see his TikTok or his Netflix for 1 hour, right?
Right.
Things
They'll be the ones looting the stores. They'll lose their
yeah,
mind.
exactly. Those guys gotta watch for those TikTokers, man.
That if
Yeah,
y'all
and we're not prepared for any of that, right? No, living like you living off the land. I mean, a certain amount of the population in America, yeah, they got the guns and they know how to forage. If really, if push comes to shove, they'd be, a little bit better. But there's millions of people who have no experience with any of that, right?
That's right. And that's the scary part. I was blessed to have a family that taught me how to hunt and fish and grow food. So, I can
Yeah,
do stuff like that. But let's move on to the American economy real quick, before
yeah,
we go, because we talked a little bit about China. And while our media is telling us that the economy is great and that there's job growth, anybody who's paying attention knows better, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So, what can we do to really protect ourselves from what's to come?
To protect ourselves, yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like if I guess it kind of depends on how bad things get, right?
Right.
So I guess the ultimate, I guess if if there's something crazy happens, yeah, definitely your hard assets, right? I mean, if it comes to Mad Max, then even I love gold and silver, but if it's Mad Max, then even gold can't even save you, right? Then you really just need guns, and a farm. a property you could defend is really your base. Um, yeah, I guess just to protect yourself is really just do that kind of hard assets. So gold, silver, Bitcoin, why not? Um, and then if you get into other things, you're talking about land, should I have a cottage or a property or just something that I could escape to or could just live off of. Um, and then if you go into the real high level end game, like end of the world stuff, then yeah, to really, can I shoot an animal and eat it? Can I do that and all that, right?
Right, right.
I'm still optimist. I don't I hope I don't well, I hope not in our lifetime we see like a Mad Max world end. I think the way it would go, well, I'm just guessing and hoping that it would just become more of a third world country. So think about Venezuela, like an extreme case. People do live in Venezuela. It's unpleasant, and crime rates are say high, and or just maybe more bad things happen, more more homicides, but it's not the end of the world, right? So I just kind of think about that whatever things are now, I just see them getting worse, but I don't see them ending per se, or hope not. Um, because I feel like the future is never as bad or as good as you think it will be. But I just see everything will get eroded. Maybe then the whole world truly becomes more equal because we're all just equally poor. So the way of life that maybe you and I grew up or our parents grew up, maybe most people won't have that. It'll be more luxurious if you have a home and have a good property. Maybe in the future, maybe most people are just poor and they're living in these little pods and you own nothing and be happy kind of thing. And life sucks for a lot of people, but life moves on. So I mean that sucks too. But I don't know. It's hard to predict the future, honestly. It's hard
Right,
to it's hard to know. I
right.
guess as you say, all you can do is prepare for what if scenarios the best you can.
Well, I think that preparing is extremely important right now because of the landscape that they're paving for us. None of us asked for this. You know what I mean? But with the printing and the wars and
Yeah,
and just the nonsense and the invasion of privacy and
yeah,
the stripping of rights. I mean,
yeah.
it's coming at us full bore, and they're not slowing down, and it comes from both sides.
No, yeah, that's true. And then
Now,
yeah, add in a digital currency and then everything you just said in your money now. I think that would be the final nail in the coffin. If we do get to a stage where it's like pure cashless society, I mean that is more of an end game, right? Then you really have no escape. Because yeah, you'll be, persecuted or prosecuted to the ends of the earth if you start doing your own cash deals on the side, right?
well, I mean, that's why I'm so like I've been very adamant, for months now about tangibles, gold, silver,
Yeah.
platinum, brass, mostly gold, silver. How do you feel about gold backs though? What's your take on gold backs?
Sorry, I don't know, like a gold back currency, or I don't know
Gold back currency, yes. It's not quite a paper money, it's a plastic money with gold in it, and it's backed by gold. I can
Yeah,
send
no, I
you a
mean,
link.
I think that would be awesome, like a merge almost with like crypto backed by gold. It's kind of like, who's doing it. If it's if it's a reputable company, like I know there was gold money and they had stuff like that. If it's like a digital transaction and it's backed by gold, like one for one, and it's
Right,
legitimate, like your gold is held in a safe and it's not, lent out or any of those crazy games, I think that would be awesome, right? Because if I
right,
had $1,000, I could just exchange it for $1,000 of gold, totally unallocated, and I could just exchange it. And as a free market solution, I think that would be, or that, well, that would have been, or that will be, if we had a truly free market choice in currency. I think the answer would be like a crypto backed by gold kind of thing. So you just have like essentially banks, like a bank that is sole job is to keep gold in a vault, and then you can trade it as in, and the bank would still find user fees and they could get by with it like that. But in a truly free market scenario, like no Federal Reserve, and you can do silver, your own fiat, gold, crypto, I think you would have some that effect as the answer. So if it's provided by the free market, then I mean I think that'd be awesome, right?
Well, I think in a true free market, which we've never seen in the United States ever, which we really need to get there. We really do.
Yeah.
In a true free market, there could be multiple currencies. It wouldn't have to be one or the other. It would be
Yeah.
whatever, the people believed in at the time.
Yeah.
What is your take on Bitcoin? Are you
Um,
pro or con?
I'm more. I mean, it could it be a CIA asset and psyop and all that. I mean, it could be. Who knows? But yeah, there's no. I would just free market it. Let people use it if they want. If people want to transact it, that's fine. Me personally, yeah, I wouldn't put my life savings into it, right? And if
Right.
I had to choose, I would still choose gold, silver. But yeah, I don't. There's in a free market. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to like something, but as long as two people like it, then let them do it, and they can use it, and that's
Right.
fine. So yeah, as far as regulation or anything, no. I mean, we don't need any of that. Taxation on it, like taxing Bitcoin gains. I mean, it just gets more absurd the more the state gets involved, right? But so me personally, yeah, I mean, yeah, I own some Bitcoin, nothing crazy. I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but I mean, yeah, it's good to have it. And could Bitcoin, maybe there's a crisis maybe there's a big market crash within the next year or so. Could Bitcoin go back to $100,000? Yeah, probably. And I do want to just buy more of it. But yeah, I mean, that again, that's the beauty in the free market, right? It answers the need for a certain amount of the population. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little, but just kind of let people live to their own devices, and you'll get solutions to these problems that, again, the government, central planning, they never be able to provide, right?
I mean, at this point, they don't provide anything besides doom
Yeah,
and
I
gloom,
mean,
man. I mean, it's
not
crazy.
even, yeah, they're the ones causing the problem. So yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm the same as you. I would rather have the hard assets. Give me
yeah,
the gold and the silver. I'm cool with gold backs too, and I'll make sure I get you a link on those too, just so you can check it out.
yeah,
But you know, Bitcoin, I am a believer in Bitcoin, but like you said, I wouldn't put all my chips in on it either. But I want
yeah,
some so I don't get caught with my pants down in a
yeah,
situation
exactly. Yeah,
type thing.
yeah,
But there's countries like El Salvador right now. El
yeah,
Salvador is pretty much predominantly Bitcoin at this point because their currency has been debased to shit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're doing it big down there.
Yeah, and again, a lot, everyone, well, presumably they have their own central bank who's been doing it themselves, but yeah, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, the president, he seems like a good guy, and he's trying to do more free market stuff, and then even Argentina has that new guy with
Oh,
the pork chop mustache. What is
Larry,
it?
I think his name
I
is.
can't
He's
remember. Yeah, that guy. So I guess you have
anarcho-capitalist, dude.
yeah, yeah, that coming. It seems like something's happening, and sometimes that's the thing. Sometimes in like people, only when things get so bad is that they'll finally make a change, right? So I'm hoping, like I said, El Salvador is doing the Bitcoin thing, and the new guy in Argentina, you know, hopefully enough people are saying, okay, like just enough of this, right? Just we've tried our hand at socialism and all this stuff, and it doesn't work, and it got us here. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that guy. And then even Italy, they had that girl. I haven't watched that for a while, but they had the female prime minister in Italy, and she was saying some real like good things about like this is gold, and people in Africa are poor because of the policies that we do, and that it's just more free market ideas. So yeah, you get these pockets here and there. So yeah, we'll see what
I
comes of
wish
that.
we get somebody in America with some free market
Yeah,
ideas in the mainstream. We
yeah,
have them. We have them in the Libertarian Party, but we get shunned and spit on per se by the rest of the folks because it's more that they don't understand our policies or that it seems a little bit too radical because the TV told them it was too radical.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's funny. America, yeah, because you have Democrats, Republicans, then you have the libertarians, then you have people who just don't vote. Um, it does seem weird because America is like not weird, but it's kind of telling how things work. Like near capitalism in America made the American dream possible. and it made the technological advancement, and like near capitalism, I'm calling it.
That's
It
right.
made America the most powerful country that we've known, right? And now that once you get there, it's kind of like, you know what? Let's go back on everything that let's forget everything that got us there, and then we'll try this, socialism, government control thing, um, to reverse that, right? It's kind of weird how it's always like that. It's like you almost a society can almost lose hope, and maybe this is what happened with the Roman Empire. Everyone forgot how they got rich in the first place, or how they got wealth in the first place, and then they just turned to some harebrained ideas, and maybe people got stupider, or just brainwashed or complacent or who knows what. But knowledge somehow becomes lost, right? So even
Right.
like, I mean, even like you have a Beavis and Butthead holding a gun, and all that tread on me stuff, and there's probably a big population of Americans who just abhor, who just hate that, right? Who just,
Right.
I don't even want to know, even forgetting all of American history, and the idea of the guns and American Revolution, and all of that, right? It just
Right.
wash it all away. Let's not even speak to that, right? So
They're trying
yeah,
to change history as we know it. I mean, they
yeah,
just they
yeah,
they're trying to just either take it away or
yeah,
just teach it, by themselves. And it's like, no, we have a history for a reason, and we got here for a reason, and
yeah.
we shouldn't let history repeat itself. Honestly,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
our
That's the thing, and everyone, how many times in life, like you have these slogans like we'll never forget and this that, but history really does repeat itself, right? Like
yes,
people, even age, even before COVID and everything, I remember just having those conversations that everyone thinks that the Holocaust will never happen again, and this will never happen, or a dictator will never happen again like Hitler. But I mean, there's nothing to say that it won't, right? There's nothing, and even if, say, if a country in maybe South, like Latin America or Africa, or if a dictator came and started genociding millions of people, who would really care? People aren't going to send troops there, right?
right,
In Ethiopia, I think probably 1 million people died like last year. No one cares. No one knows anyone in Ethiopia. We're
right.
sending money to Russia, or Ukraine, and doing all that, right? So yeah, no, history, it seems to always repeat itself, right?
It really does. And you spoke of Rome, and what people don't realize about
Yeah,
Rome is, why did Rome fall?
yeah. I think
They
their
debased
inflation got out
their
of hand.
dollar. They
Yeah,
debased
exactly.
their
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's now,
yeah,
this is history repeating itself right now,
yeah,
ladies
yeah,
and gentlemen. I don't know how else to like
yeah,
shake it or explain it to people. It's
yeah.
happening right now.
No,
It's
and even there was a book. Oh man, those this guy Kenneth Rogoff. I can't remember his name. He wrote the book The Curse of Cash. It was a horrible book, terrible book about the curse of cash, and basically a cashless society was better. I read it ages ago, but he cited where when Marco Polo went, I guess met Genghis Khan, and then eventually they started using paper money, and everyone thought it was like magic. Wow, this paper money was incredible. And then they came back years later, and the whole country was decimated, right, from all the paper money, right?
yep. It's
Yeah, but
crazy.
yeah, so we've seen it in Genghis Khan, Marco Polo, those guys saw it. We saw it in Roman times, and even when you truly read, like Rothbard talks about history, the cows come home. Every society, right? It's all online. Like you could see that like the dollar wasn't always king dollar. There was other fiat currencies. The history is huge. Like paper money has been destroying civilizations since the inception of paper money, right?
That's
The
right.
French
Amen.
Revolution had I can't remember, like they had their own currency. American Revolution had those continentals. I mean, it's going on and on and on, right?
Yeah,
We've seen it. There's nothing new at all. Like you said, like this is not the first central bank. This is not the first Federal Reserve, right? How many people even know that? But yeah, so we've seen it all. We've seen it all before, and I guess we'll see it again. It looks like. It's
that's
like,
right. I mean, hey, buckle up, folks. That's all I'm going to say. But
yeah.
before we go, because we got time stuff going on. Uh, let's talk about, what did you read to become the econ Fed guru that you are? What books would you recommend to people
Oh
that
man.
would
Oh
that
man.
you would like that
Ooh.
really helped you learn, this stuff?
I got so many books in my back shelf and in my basement, and The first one, the first book that was like my, what got me into all this, it was Murray Rothbard's America's Great Depression. And this is probably, yeah, some 5, maybe 7 years ago or so, 8 years ago.
Okay.
And again, especially in Canada, Austrian economics is not taught anywhere. There's not one program who teaches it. It's horrible. It'll be nice. I'd love to teach it one day. Hopefully, that's something I can do. Um, yeah, I read this book, and it's good because it explains the whole history of the Great Depression. The only other one that was as good was Lionel Robbins' book, The Great Depression or America's Great Depression, similar name. And
Okay.
Rothbard and drew from Lionel Robbins. Those are the only books worthwhile reading about the Great Depression. In the book, he talks about essentially, it's almost like a small primer of Austrian economics. He talks about the business cycle and how the Fed expanded the money supply. And when you think about the Roaring '20s, well, what made it so roaring, right? It's like easy money policies. No one pays attention, but easy money. And then the crash, and then the response, and it is just the perfect book that got me into it. And then it was just, as soon as you get that spark, it was just, wow, this Rothbard guy, just reading everything, and the mystery of banking, and just all that other stuff about banking, and then he has some histories kind of books. And then once you get into Mises, and I remember the order, it was like liberalism,
Yes.
um, and then socialism, which is like maybe like 800 pages, huge book. But I feel by the time you read socialism, it, like Hyde said, it just crushes all your fantasies that you have about socialism and the workability of socialism. And in socialism, it was the absolute nail in the coffin for it's almost like a past life before you understand Austrian economics. And I try to think, what was I thinking and believing before then, right? Because
Right.
I remember even in like university time, oh, yeah, it's just socialism, we got to help people out, and not just the high level love for it without even knowing what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you read Mises Socialism, then it's like it's game over, right? You can never go back. And then just well, Hazlitt. See, I liked him because there's like a journalistic, he was a journalist, and he was like, I kind of like look at him as like inspiration. Who he wrote in an easy to understand way. Although I just Mises and Rothbard are easy to understand. Hayek is like more difficult to understand, but I do like the way Hazlitt writes, like truly like to the layman, like any Joe Blow. You could teach it what Hazlitt writes to a high schooler, like
Right.
no, right?
Well,
So
Hazlitt wrote economics in one lesson, which
yeah,
Mises gives
econ,
away. If
yeah, yeah,
that's a
yeah,
book
yeah.
that you
Mises,
give away.
yeah, I think that was a great initiative. Mises was just sending that across the country, right, to people. And then he had even lesser known stuff. He had Hazlitt did what you should know about inflation. Like I think it's just as good. It's literally what you should know about inflation. I can't remember. I think he was writing in a response to Keynes or one of those kind of things. That was cool. And then yeah, the list just goes on and on, right? And then eventually you get into like the human actions and all that bigger stuff. But yeah, I mean, and that was the beauty of it. It was from the Mises.org site where I got America's Great Depression, because literally all the books are free, right? Like you can buy them for sure, and I buy them just to support the cause and have a collection. But yeah, I was reading these PDFs online for years on end, just sitting there, just reading.
Nice,
Then I
nice.
started ordering them. But yeah, I've read. Yeah, I had a book list of just all the things that I had to read or was gonna read. I mean, yeah, I think that's probably one of the best things that could ever be done. If Mises was just one class to your average high school student was just given, you won't get every mind, but you would get enough minds would be open. And again, once you kind of understand knowledge and how things work, I find it very difficult to go back, right? You can't go back, right? So yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
been a
once you see
journey.
things for what they are. You can't unsee them. It's
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's
You
not
kind
going
of,
away.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you could, no, I mean, sympathize in the sense for your average PhD professor. He's making, maybe $300,000 a year. He has he has a nice, safe job. He has plaques, he has accolades. Those guys have never even been exposed to Mises or all. Like, it's not even in their curriculum. You can get a PhD in one of the best American institutions and not even read one sentence from Murray Rothbard, right? Which is
Right.
insane. Like, absolutely absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, I always wonder what would those guys do if they did read even just one book, right? Like,
Right.
I don't like, either you read more because you're interested, like, wow, this is incredible, or you literally just turn the other way, right?
That's right. Well,
That's
here's the thing. I had surgery this year and I had a bunch of downtime. And in 7 weeks, I read 7 books.
nice.
Knowledge I retained from those books. And there's a bunch of Rothbard. There was some
Yeah,
Mises in there. There was, Scott Hort. I read all kinds of books. Seriously, 7 books in 7 weeks.
yeah,
The information that I retained and learned
yeah,
from those books is priceless.
yes,
And it's helped me understand things the way they are now more, because
yeah,
you have to, before you can understand politics, you must understand economics first.
yeah,
Rothbard said that. you know
yes, yeah,
you,
for sure.
you have to understand that before you understand the other, or it
Yeah,
just doesn't make sense, or you're just going to listen to whatever they're telling you
yes,
to listen to and you don't know.
yeah. No, our whole once you understand and economics and with real economics is Austrian economics. Once you understand, like, everything in just life flows out of that, right? Even the subjective value and personal preferences and liberty, freedom, all that, right? So even though it's good when people say if they want liberty and like that's awesome, but once you understand the economics of liberty, that takes you to a whole new level. It's
Hmm?
not just I want to be free because I like freedom, and that's I'd still take that. That's still good. It's good to want to be free and all that. But once you know the reasoning behind these actions and what freedom means and how that's better for you, for your community, for everyone else, and the economics of that, yeah, that's priceless, right? And yeah, that's something that we all need a little bit. Well, we all need a high dose, that's for sure, right? So, yeah.
Right. But we're running out of time here, so before we go, my friend, tell us about let's tell us how to follow you and what you're doing and how people can read your stuff. Let's go there.
So Mises blog. So on the Mises page, the Mises the Power Market blog, I'll be there. Every week I'm writing about the Federal Reserve, central banking, and on Twitter on EconCircus, you could see me there. Um, and then if you are in Prague, anyone, October 15th to 16th, come down to Prague. It's the Liberty in my Lifetime or in our Lifetime conference, and then they'll have people from around the world to discuss things of like liberty, and there'll be the private cities crowd, and that's still early stages, but hopefully we'll see the idea of private cities where you can go and live unmolested, um, without government, and it's all contract law and free market, and that's something that I think that will be the solution. So there's more coming down the pipeline. To stay tuned for that. um, and that yeah, so it's yeah, and I always got a few other projects on the go. So I just want to keep learning and keep writing and just expand on my writings and see how far I could take that for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this. Thank you so much for your
Yes.
time, man. And then
Yeah.
until next time, peace, love, and liberty. Y'all be good.
All right. See you. Thank you. Yeah.